Sometimes you have reading goals to hit. Sometimes you're just simply too busy to read a bunky book. And sometimes you need something fast to get you out of a reading slump. These are some short book recommendations that are perfect for these kind of situations. These all are under 200 pages and they're guaranteed to deliver a punch in a short format. The first book is categorized as dystopian / sci-fi, but it can also be seen as a literary fiction, it can be a speculative fiction, and I feel like it's one of my most universal suggestions, meaning that this is a book that I think everyone out there can enjoy to an extent, or at least find something interesting about it. And the book is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I personally absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars, and I honestly look forward to rereading this book again. In this book, you are following someone who is called The Child. The protagonist is the youngest of the 40 women who are locked in this cage underground. Most of them remember that they used to have a life before they got locked in the cage. However, the protagonist is the only one who doesn't remember her life before this cage. And then these women never really know how they got into this cage. Their memories are rather blurry. They are under security, so they have guards that are looking over them 24/7. And these women are only given some basics to survive, some clothing and food. They have been in this cage for so long that they have completely lost any interest in trying to get out. Not that they don't have interest, but they don't see a way out and they just kind of exist. But the child, being the youngest one and growing up in this cage, she naturally starts to ask questions, and those questions lead to an incredible story. I personally think that this book is such an amazing exploration of what it means to be human, of the importance of society and how big of a role society plays in our lives. It is also an exploration of a meaning of life and trying to find purpose in life and adapting to different conditions, how quickly human mind changes depending on the circumstance. I absolutely loved this book. It is dark at times, but it definitely makes you think quite a lot. Besides all of those philosophical questions, this book is also one huge puzzle because you don't really know what is going on, and be prepared if you do decide to read it that you're not going to get any answers. You're not gonna know what is going on. You have to figure this mystery out on your own, and it is fun, but it is also extremely infuriating to not know. I literally think about this book once, at least like once every week, because it has had such a big impact on me, and I think it is one of the most unique pieces of literature that I have read, and I do always recommend this book to everyone. It is very short and it is very engaging, and I personally loved my time reading this book. Next, let's talk about sci-fi, and I actually think that all of the books on my sci-fi list are very beginner friendly, so if you haven't read much of this genre, I do think you can pick any of these up and have a really good time. The first recommendation that I have is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. In general, Becky Chambers is such a feel-good author for me, and if you haven't read anything by her, I do recommend checking out her books. So To Be Taught If Fortunate is a short novella. It follows 4 astronauts in far future as they're traveling across different worlds, and they're trying to find a habitable planet for humans to move to. This is a very hopeful story. It is about humanity and the value of discovery and research, about the joy of discovery too. It is also about complexity of human relationships and friendships. Besides that, you do get snippets of many different planets, and each of them is very different to the other ones, and it is really fun to discover all of those settings as you read along this book. For me personally, the only thing that I didn't absolutely love about this book is its ending. However, it makes total sense for the story, and I think it works as a story as a whole. Next 2 books that I would like to recommend are also a series by Becky Chambers, and these are Monk and Robot series by her. The first book of this series is A Psalm for the Wild Built, and then the second book is A Prayer for the Crowned Shy. These 2 books, as you can see, are very short. You can definitely read them in one sitting, and these are so incredibly cute. I love this book so much. So in this series, you are following a non-binary monk, sibling Dex, who are traveling across this world with a rather unlikely companion, a wild-built robot named Mosscap. Mosscap is the absolute ultimate comic relief kind of character. He is so awkward. He has never met humans before, so he has a lot of questions about very basic things, and he gets awkward really fast. But it is also so fun. Becky Chambers does an amazing job at imagining the future in its most best case scenario, and it is lovely in a world where there is so much work that is about post-apocalyptic. The Earth is getting destroyed, which is fun. I love reading those as well. But once in a while, you want something that is hopeful, that is optimistic, and these books are exactly that. I do think these two books are perfect for those who love cozy fantasies. These are essentially like cozy sci-fi slash solarpunk books, and I think this is an amazing duology, especially again, if you're new to sci-fi, this is a great start because there is very little sci-fi and very much just a lot of philosophical questions, a lot of humorous moments, and just such a great time. Next, I would like to talk about The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. The first book of this 7-book series is All Systems Red. All of the books in the series are, I think most of them are under 200 pages. They're rather short, but they're so funny. In this world, you're following the main character, Murderbot, who is part artificial intelligence, part human. However, they actually hacked their own software. They would so much rather watch crappy TV shows in their bunk rather than do their job, which I can totally relate to that. I think the series is more like science fiction heavy than the other ones that I mentioned, but it's still great even if you haven't read much of this genre. And I really love Murderbot. They're grumpy and they are introverted and they really don't want to deal with humans, but at the same time they constantly end up saving someone because they really love people around them, even though they try to deny it all of the time. These books are so fast paced and it is very easy to fly through the series. Right now I'm on book 3 or 4 of this series, and I honestly cannot wait to see what other adventures Murderbot gets up to and how this series wraps up at the end. Last on my list is a sci-fi classic, and that is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This book was published in like 1979, but it still reads very modern, and I think it has one of the most captivating first chapters because you're following someone as his house is about to be demolished and he's so stressed about it. But as it happens, it is actually moments before Earth is about to be destroyed and he gets rescued by his friends who turns out to be an alien, and together they travel across the galaxy and do some research for this book that's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm sorry, I feel like my edition of this book really doesn't do it justice. Let me show you some actually beautiful covers of this book. This specific edition I picked up at a used book sale for like 50 cents. It's not my favorite. I don't think it's anyone's favorite, let's be honest, but it was 50 cents and it's very small. I can grab it in my bag. It's very compact, so I'm not complaining, but there are more beautiful editions out there. And this is actually a series, so if you do like the tone of this book, you can continue. It is a 5-book series, I believe. And this particular series is the one that I think has some of the most unique, fun book names I have personally ever encountered. So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. Mostly Harmless. The Restaurant at the End of the World. I think these names are absolutely brilliant. I haven't read the whole series, I only read book 1, but I do really want to pick it up sometime soon. Oh boy, it is hard to find fantasy that is under 200 pages. However, I do have 2 recommendations for you. The first one is The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. This novella is set in Cosmere, which is his most popular universe. The Mistborn saga is also set in Cosmere, same as the Stormlight Archive series, Chess of the Emerald Sea, and many other of his popular books. The Emperor's Soul follows Shai. She is someone who can do forging. This is a very unique magic system. I think Brandon Sanderson in general is known for his extremely unique magic systems that are so cool to read about. So Shai can transform objects into something else, but in order to do that, she needs to know what the object is exactly made of, and then she creates a replica of something else through that object. But in order to do that, she needs to put a seal on that object. Okay, I feel like the more I talk, the more it sounds ridiculous, but it makes a lot of sense once you read the book. I don't think I'm just the best at explaining this magic system. But essentially, Shai is a criminal. She's been caught replacing one of the paintings in like the Emperor's Palace. And instead of being executed, she's actually tasked to forge a soul of an emperor. And forging a soul is a very complex, huge task. So she's trying to do that while at the same time finding a way to escape the palace and survive. I love this read. It is so fast-paced, and as I said, the magic system is so unique. If you have read Brandon Sanderson Sanderson books before, I do feel like this novella is a very solid addition to the Cosmere, and also it has like very recognizable Brandon Sanderson voice. But also, if you have never read anything by this author, I know a lot of his other books, specifically his series, get recommended as like the entryway into his world, but I do think you can pick up something like this, a short novella that is under 200 pages that will give you a taste of what he's writing and his magic is about, and then you can decide for yourself if you want to check out his other series. My next fantasy recommendation is technically cheating because it's 250 pages. It's not under 200 pages, but it is really hard to find fantasies that are short. And I do think that this book is really worth recommending and worth talking about, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is technically fantasy slash magical realism. You're following Piranesi, and the beginning of this book is rather confusing. So Piranesi lives in this weird place where there are many rooms, like many hallways. There are many different statues that represent different things, and at first you think that Piranesi is the only one there. However, later on you realize that there is another person that also lives within that space, and Piranesi refers to that person as the other. But as you read this book, you start to figure out what this place is, what is the relationship between Piranesi and the other, and I do think the plot twist of this book is so good. It is something I never expected when I first picked up this book. This book is like a very cool journey to discover what is going on. It is very intriguing. It is quite action-packed, even though again the beginning is rather slow and it's very confusing, but you kind of just have to push through it. Once you get to more plot development, you will not be able to put it down. I did absolutely love this book. I think I gave it 5 stars, so maybe 4.5, I don't remember, but it was a great read and I do highly recommend it, even though it is technically slightly longer than 200 pages. I don't typically read a ton of horror, but there is one that I absolutely love recommending, and that is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is book 1 of the Southern Reach series. The rest of the series is actually normal length books, but book 1 is very short, and I do think it is a very interesting introduction to this world. The Southern Reach is an organization that overlooks Area X. Area X is something that has formed, like it's a secluded area that has formed many decades ago, and in general people stay away from this area because there are some weird things that happen within the premises of Area X. So in this book you're following a person who is a member of the 12th expedition to the Area X. You are basically following their journal as they start to uncover all of the horrors that lie within Area X. I think this book is extremely atmospheric. It is one of the most atmospheric reads I've ever read, and I loved my time reading it. I remember when I finished this book I was just staring at the wall for a while because this book got me mesmerized, and also I had so many questions about it, and it is truly a very unique read, and this is the type of horror that I can definitely get behind. As someone who doesn't have a lot of experience reading horror, I felt like this was a very good introduction to the genre, and I do think that this is a very fun, unique and interesting series to check out. Lastly, if you're looking for a fun, short read, I think children classics should not be dismissed because they can be so fun. Even when you read them as adult for the first time or reread them, I think they can still provide so much wisdom, so much joy. My first recommendation here is The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. This is the first book of the Chronicles of Narnia series. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what the series is about. It's about 4 siblings who find a door to Narnia, to this magical world in their closet, and they go there and they have many adventures within Narnia. This is such a children's fantasy classic. I feel like this is the type of book that everyone should read at least once. I think a book like this can be a very joyful read and is a pure form of escapism. And I cannot finish this video without mentioning my personal favorite. These are the children book series that I absolutely loved as a child and I love as an adult, and these are the Moomin series by Finnish author Tuve Jansson. Moomins are these little characters that live in their Moomin Valley, and they have a lot of adventures. There are so many characters in this series. You can definitely relate to many of these characters, and some of them you will question a lot. I think these books are perfect if you're trying to get out of a reading slump. They are so short, you can read them literally within an hour or two, but they're so joyful and there is so much hope, so much humor within them, and they just will make you feel so comforted. I do really think that this is a beautiful, brilliant series. I keep coming back to it even as an adult and I love it so much. So that is going going to be all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. If you have read any of the books that I mentioned today and you want to chat about them in the comments, please do so. I love talking to you, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!